Welcome to Unlock Your Retirement. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore, and I'm here with our host, the man with the plan, as always, is Bruce Smith from WealthCare. Bruce, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Every day is good. Mrs. Smith is still putting up with me after all these years. My kids, my grandkids love me. Little Bruce has finally, I don't know what the stroke of luck is, but um, I get a little frustrated with how much time they spend on their iPad. They just kind of live in
Oof.
the electronic nightmare, right?
Yep.
And both him and Lily have finally been turned on to books, and he is reading a book a night.
That's
And
awesome.
he's just voracious. I was always a voracious reader, so it was really kinda
Same.
nice to see that switch flipped, and, uh, and Bruce, his dad, Bruce, my son, Bruce, we were talking about it, and I said, "Hey," I said, "I'll send money all day long for books, buy him all the books he can stand," so
Yeah.
real excited about that.
That's awesome. Yeah, books are great. I was addicted to books as a kid. I grew up on a farm in the Midwest, middle of nowhere, so there wasn't always a lot to do. I mean, we did a lot outside, but books, oh man, I read so many books and love books, love stories. Yeah. Yeah, that's always great to see when the kids get into reading and put the phone and the iPad or the, Nintendo Switch down and read. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I don't know if you did, but in school they had the paper that came out once a month, and they have like the book order, and you'd select
Oh,
what you wanted,
yes.
and I literally one time I went home and I told Dad, I want all these books, all of them, and he goes, "What about this one? It's like a girl's love story." I said, I'll read them all." Okay, and I get this big box of books. The next month I'd read all the books, and
I would go crazy. Like, I want 6, and they're like, "Pick 2," my parents would say, and I go, "Nope, I'm getting 6 or 7."
no, that's
I
my
went
parents.
crazy. The Scholastica book order program, Scholastica was great. And
Yep.
then that when my kids were little, they'd have Scholastica book fairs, and I told my wife, "I'll take the kids because 'cause we'd go to the book fair, and they have books for adults too,
Oh
or
yeah.
young adult books like some mystery I'm like, I'm buying books for myself to read there."
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
was always in the library, and it was kinda funny. The librarian got used to me bugging her and saying, "Is the new hot rod in? Is new Carcraft in?" Because it
Oh,
was always
yeah.
cars, right? And I
Yeah.
checked out every single book in the library that existed about hot rods, cars, and whatever, and years later, we went to, I think it was an Oktoberfest or some celebration or whatever, and, I'll be darned, I pull into the parking lot, I'm in my V12 Mercedes SL, my old collectible car, and she walks through the parking lot, and she stopped, and she goes, "Bruce, my god, it's been so long." I said, "Yeah, it's been decades,"
Yeah.
and she looked at the car, and she goes, "Well, it looks like all the hot rod books and everything paid off," and I went, "Yeah, I'm still a car guy," it was just so funny to have that moment, it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, well, yeah, I remember running in after I was married, running into my old kindergarten teacher in my hometown with my new bride. And I cringed because I knew there'd be some horrible stories of me as as a youngster. Not book related, but yeah, during nap time, Tony was very hyper, and all the kids were supposed to be resting on their mats. And I look up, and Tony has scaled the floor to ceiling bookshelf, and he's up on top. All
Yeah,
the other kids are quiet on their
well,
mat.
you talk about hometown, I mean, did you there was a thing they just talking about, the Dan Fogelberg, Same Old Lang Syne, and
Oh,
how the girl in it, kept quiet all those years.
yeah,
And then after his death, she's like, "Yes, it was a true story." And they were high school sweethearts. He
yep.
ran into her that Christmas Eve, and, and they said there were only 2 things that he changed in the song that weren't true. One was the color of her eyes, and the other one was what her husband did for a living. He was an architect.
Huh.
And she went to some of his shows after the fact and stuff, and, uh, and he said, "I'm sorry for changing the color of your eyes," and he said, "We had a good laugh backstage about it," but she was talking about it recently, and I love
Yeah.
that song, and it's
Oh, the story in that song, and I had heard him in an interview, allude to the fact that it was true, but he wasn't gonna talk about
yeah,
it, and
yeah.
yeah. or that it might be true. You always got that impression. And yeah, that's one of the greatest. He was a great storyteller.
Yeah.
All his sons, the leader of the band.
Leader of the band about his
Uh,
dad. Yeah.
oof,
So,
yeah. I
as
mean,
you can tell, ladies and gentlemen, Tony and I are also musical fans.
yeah, yeah, we are.
And
Yeah, we
and
are.
I was a
Well,
DJ in a previous life,
yeah,
and I was actually a music director at an FM station down south many, many, many years ago. Uh,
fun. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We're into the music. Well, Dan
I think
Fogelberg.
Marconi invented radio the week before that or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember splicing tape and, playing vinyl records. All we had is a turntable, and then we had
Yeah.
reel-to-reel tape. And to edit a commercial, you had to actually put the tape on a splicer and get a razor blade and splice
Oh,
the tape and
I
tape it together. I did that all the time. Yeah.
yeah, we got an FCC hit. We had a guy that saw us splicing on the Atari MX5050B,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and he decided to play this one Beatles song that had vulgarities in it, and he was
Oh.
going to he would clip out the vulgarity, but flip it, so it would be
Oh, sure. Yep. Yep.
well, he missed a few, and Uncle
Oh,
Charlie, as
no.
we say, got very upset about that. We didn't get
I bet.
fined, but it was pretty ugly, so we're not gonna have any of those on this show.
No, no. We have an editor, and I tell our editor, you've got to edit out all of Bruce's expletives, and
Yeah.
that's going to take you a while.
So
No.
this editor sleeps quite a bit because they
Yeah,
don't have to pay.
he
So,
doesn't have to edit anything on this show. That's for sure.
no.
That's good. Well, I know you want to talk about the Millionaire Tax Trap is the title of the show. Well, you got to help me out here, Bruce. What are you talking about? Tell our listeners and viewers out there, what is the Millionaire Tax Trap?
Yeah, this one, this one people are kind of like, wait a second, time out. Let me frame this. So I'm going to retire, or I am retired, and I've got $1 million in my retirement account. That's got to be great news. That's got to all be good. There can't be anything bad about that. I've worked my whole life to accumulate, to save, to do all these things. What do you mean there's something bad to do with it? And the fact is that, yes, I want to be very clear, you've accumulated $1 million or more in an IRA. And the crazy part is when you say that to people today, I've been doing this 40 years, and I remember really dating myself. I mean, if somebody had more than 100, well, I remember when IRAs started. I remember when the 401ks started,
Yep.
and if you had $100,000 in a retirement account, wow, you had something. Then you had $200,000. Oh my God, But that 40 years has gone by, and that number today is, I mean, a husband and wife with two 401ks. I mean, if you're retiring with less than $1 million, you know, that's your nest egg. You're going to have to live
Yeah.
off that plus Social Security. So the number has gotten big, but
Right.
with that success comes failure. In that, you had the discipline, you sacrificed, and you've achieved a monetary milestone of success. But the problem is that, as we always say, that first dollar that you put into that retirement account, you said, I don't want to pay tax on it. And everybody told you, I love railing against the financial industry for this one, because they say, we don't provide any tax advice. But you told them to open an IRA. You told them to open that 401k. You said, pay taxes later. It's going to be great. You'll be in a lower tax bracket. You won't need as much income. And we see how much that comes true. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah. So the fact is, and the way we explain it to people is, so when you went to put that first dollar in that retirement account, Uncle Sam shows up and says, hey, I need my tax money on that. You go, no, 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 special deal here. You gave me. I don't have to pay tax till I want to, long into my retirement. And he goes, okay, I'll just keep track of that on your retirement credit card. I'll just, whatever taxes you owe me, we'll have a running balance, and we'll settle up later. That'll be fine. And so guess what? As the IRA grows larger, as these 401ks swell in size, the market cooperates, all these things are working. But there's, in the background, in the darkness, there is this complex tax consequence. And what has happened, there used to be straight taxes. I mean, 30 years ago, it was an income tax rate. That was it. And guess what? Social Security wasn't taxed 30 years ago,
Right.
40, whatever the heck it's been. So many things have changed, and Washington has gotten very good at engineering a multi-level tax platform. So you've got all of these things happening. you've got income tax, you've got your Medicare tax, you've got Social Security tax, and these are all things that take away wealth from you in retirement. So the Millionaire Tax Trap, it's a celebration of achieving a milestone, but that milestone comes with a lot of hidden thorns, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And even though you get a break on it, an immediate tax break on money you put into a traditional IRA or 401k, the IRS has not forgotten about that money. And they're fine with it because not only are you going to have to pay taxes on that initial money you put in, but you're going to have to pay taxes on all of the growth and the compounding interest, which will over time compound and grow, and which is why you're putting it in there in the first place. But that's the tough thing, because the tax consequences have gotten more complex, haven't they?
Oh, there's no question about it. There's so many things that are happening there, and let's kind of look at that time window. So, maybe you're 25 years old, and you kind of start hitting your earnings years. Things are happening, and you're like, hey, this is all good. Well, 25 to 65 is 40 years, and for 40 years, what did you have to do as far as tax planning? Nothing.
Yeah.
Because everything was automated. You earned it, you owed taxes on it, employer took it out of your paycheck, you never saw it, you saw a net paycheck, that's what bought your groceries, paid for your vacations, paid your mortgage, did all that stuff. Life was on autopilot. Great. You know, so and you said, "Hey, I'll defer taxation on this thing." So the day that that workplace paycheck stops and you become the generator of the paycheck from your accumulated nest egg, that's when all of a sudden now you become the bookkeeper. You become the responsible strategist of saying, okay, what do I do here tax wise? Yet the entire financial industry, we've said it many times on the program, you've got your emails, you've got your paper statements if you're still getting those. You see it on the websites, you see it everywhere in emails they send you, and it says, we do not provide tax advice. So your provider, your Fidelity, your Vanguard, your 401k, whoever, we do not provide tax advice. So it's on you. They said, but then they say, then there's a warning and you need to adhere to the warning. Seek professional guidance before making any transactions.
Yeah.
Why are they saying that? Because, there's a optimum way of doing this. There's an automated way of doing this, and there's the whatever happens to you version of doing this when it comes to paying your retirement taxes. So, yeah, that's the problem that occurs. It's your burden, and most people don't have help. They don't have a financial advisor that does the in-depth tax planning. We get so many clients each year that come to us, including CPAs who become clients, CFOs of companies who become clients, are like, hey, you guys have this incredible tax strategy, and it's forward looking. It lets us estimate what the taxes are going to be, and then how far can we cut that? What's allowed by the tax code without any fancy craziness, and they're amazed at it. And it's not that complex, really.
Yeah. Well, the key to
We
it,
make it simple.
right. But the key there is you're minimizing the tax burden. You're looking ahead, and too many people are just putting off the inevitable and letting it grow so they'll have to pay more later. And what happens later when you need it the most, or when you're spending down your money in retirement, you want to minimize your tax burden. And some people think, well, I'll no longer have an income. I'm not working. So why wouldn't my taxes be lower? I'll be in a much lower tax bracket in retirement. But that's just not, and I don't want to take a pay cut in retirement. Do
Well, who
you?
does?
Yeah, nobody does.
Things are
So
costing more.
I hope to have the same income I do now in retirement, right?
More, because
And
things
if
are
not
going to
more,
cost more. Yeah.
right? More take home, that's for sure.
Yeah, we did a seminar recently, and I said, I remember when gas was 20, I think I remember 28 cents a gallon. And the one lady in the crowd said she
Wow.
remembered 24.
Wow. I don't remember that, but I remember it was pretty low. Yeah.
Well, my grandfather told me about it. That's a story
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with.
I remember buying a bottle of Coke out of a machine for
Mean,
25 cents, a glass bottle for 25
I
cents.
remember a glass bottle for less than that. I'm just gonna leave it.
Yeah. And my mom, the place my mom worked, they still had a glass bottle machine, and it was a quarter, and I
Was it
just
was it the was it a red machine?
it was
And you
red.
put the thing in that had a handle, you tip
Yep,
down and the door opened?
yep,
You popped one out? Yeah.
yep, exactly. That
Good
was the
times.
exact machine.
Good
And
ti
then another place had a flat red machine where you lifted up the lid, it was
Yep.
like almost a freezer,
Cooler.
but you slid the bottle in
Bottle.
this roll,
Yep.
to this point, and then it would pull up after you'd put the quarter in.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, those were the days, but what we're talking about, the whole point of the pop for a quarter or the gas for a quarter a gallon is inflation, right? And people aren't planning on inflation eating away either. So, taxes, Bruce, aren't taxes one of the largest expenses most people will face in retirement?
Over your retirement lifetime, taxes are one of the largest, if not the largest expense in most cases. And if you have, I'm trying to think. So, you have your living taxes and you have the taxes after you and your spouse are gone. Uh,
Sure.
and
That
this
your
is
family
crazy.
inherits.
Yeah. So the next one is you've got, if you have three or more children, living heirs, when you're both gone, the person who will probably get the biggest chunk of your retirement is none of the three. It'll be the person not listed on your beneficiary forms. It will be Uncle Sam.
Hmm.
And that's a big deal. Is it
Yeah.
people take a very passe approach to it because they're like, well, when I'm gone, they're going to pay taxes, but they're getting my money, so I don't care. And I can't tell you the number of times that we've done our advanced tax planning with people, and they're like, so we show them this is the projected cost of how much Uncle Sam gets versus your children, and they're like, wait, stop, back up, say that again, show me that again. Wait, what? And it's like, hold on a second. I mean, we see where people retire and they think, oh, my IRAs and my 401ks are tax free. They're not tax free, they're tax deferred. There's this big invisible chunk that doesn't belong to you, it belongs to Uncle Sam because you made that deal way back when you put that first dollar in.
Oh, yeah, and so yeah, there you go, and you make that deal, and then you forget about it, but Uncle Sam doesn't. That's the
No,
bottom
Uncle
line,
Sam
right?
does not
Yeah.
Uncle Sam has never developed Alzheimer's.
Nope, nope, a great memory, a memory like an elephant, they say.
Yeah.
So, we talk about taxes later in retirement. I know we have to touch on RMDs because that's a big part of taxes in retirement. If you have that traditional 401k or IRA, and you alluded to this a few minutes ago, but you have to pull money out starting at what? Now it's age 73, and they keep moving these years around, and
It's
when you have to take.
73 and eventually it becomes 75, but if you're born in 1960 like me, it's 73. So, and here's and this is confusing, and if you really want confusion, before the Secure Act had adjusted it, for many years, it was like, "In the year that you turn 70 and a half," who's the knucklehead that came up with that number? That was always such a bane.
The
You
half years are terrible.
Yeah, but
59 and a half is another one. It's like,
yeah,
some committee couldn't agree on 59 or 60, so they just compromised and said, "We don't celebrate half birthdays or
yeah,
half
it's
years."
just, it's
That's the
somebody said,
dumbest thing
"Let's make
ever.
it 60." Well, we can get a little more money if we do 59 and a half. Okay. I mean,
That's
it's
nuts.
crazy, but here's the thing, RMDs are incredibly really expose vulnerability of retirees because number one, we get asked all the time, explain this to me or explain this to me again for the fifth time because they are confusing, but the fact is, so RMDs is you reach a certain point, you've saved your money, you've tax deferred it, you've grown your assets, you've got a good portfolio, you're doing all this stuff. And then you reach a certain point where Uncle Sam says, hold on a second, I need some income. I need some income. Forget about you and your retirement income. I need income. So
Right.
you're going to have to start taking that money out and paying me, Uncle Sam. And it sounds great on the surface to Uncle Sam because not only is he getting money, he's not getting all of it. So you're getting a piece too. So hey, you can go do something with that. But people that have amassed the most wealth are people who typically don't need it. They're very frugal in what they do. But here's the right way. Here's how we educate people about RMDs. And if you're out there listening today, this is one of the key things you're going to learn in today's show. I want you to think about something that most people do understand, which is credit cards. Okay.
Yep.
So the day that you put that first dollar into that retirement account, Uncle Sam shows up and says, "Oh, I'll just keep track of it on your retirement credit card." You go, "Okay, so all these years you contribute, the money's growing, all these things are happening, and you reach retirement." And Uncle Sam says, "Hey, I've got your credit card here." And they don't send you a statement. But if you could see a statement on your retirement account, you'd see things very similar to what a credit card account looks like. You would see, number one, a balance, and that balance is what you owe. Well, there is always a balance. If you were to pay your tax bill in one lump sum today, here's how much it would be to pay Uncle Sam.
Sure.
Okay. And people don't do that. And we're not recommending they do that because that's probably
Mhm.
not the optimum, but there is an optimum. The second thing is there's an interest rate on that credit card. 23, 24, 28, 31 crazy percent. Okay. What's the interest rate we're talking about? The tax rate. Do you know what the interest rate's going to be next year on a credit card? No. Do you know what the tax rate's going to be on your retirement? No. So it's an unknown, but it's something that is causing it to cost more and more and more over time. So you've got a balance, an interest rate. You have what? A minimum payment. What happens if you pay the minimum payment on a credit card, Tony?
Basically nothing. You're not paying any of the balance off. You're just paying interest.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes forever because it's like you're paying 136 of the unpaid balance. Well, 136 of something is never all of it. It's always a piece of it, and you pay forever. Now
You're
they did
basically just
finally
paying interest.
passed some new legislation where credit card companies actually have to give you where they're actually chipping away at the balance. Okay, that's
Yes.
wonderful. But RMDs are the same thing. So now you have to take a minimum withdrawal. You're going to pay taxes on it. But if you only take the minimum withdrawal, what are you doing? You're doing the same thing as that minimum payment on the credit card. The debt is accumulating. The debt is still growing. The debt
Yeah.
because that
Never
RMD
thought of it that way.
yeah, I mean, and that's why we're having this discussion to teach people because you start taking it at 73, but if you're taking out 4% or 5% or whatever it is, whatever the government calculation is, and they go up all the time, of course. Every year it's going to go up as far as the percentage you have to take. But if your investments did 7% that year, guess what? You didn't even take out the money still grew. You took money out and it still grew. Next year, you got to take a larger percentage of a bigger number. You don't hit parity till about age 82, somewhere in that neighborhood is where you're actually taking the amount that you're making. So this thing gets really stupid. Well, then it begins to compound. So you don't want to pay the minimum payment on a credit card. You don't want to take RMDs. You want to have a strategic plan of how do I get rid of the debt?
Yeah.
How do I pay off Uncle Sam? That's the key.
Yeah, and maybe pay taxes now instead of later, and have that money go into a Roth where it grows tax-free, the principal's tax-free. So when you take it out later in life or your kids take it, there are no taxes on it.
Well, and don't forget the spouse. That's one of the key elements in this is, we talked, I think, last week on the show that, whenever you talk about the surviving spouse in a relationship,
Yep.
but the problems that occur, especially tax-wise, is, okay, so we lose an income in the form of one of the Social Securities disappears. So
Yep.
we have to go now into the 401k, into the IRA to get our
Yep.
money. And they are a single taxpayer. So they're in a higher tax bracket. They've got compressed tax brackets. So they're paying more in taxes to get a dollar. And they lost Social Security, which was only a part of it was being taxed. So to go get a dollar now, all of it's being taxed. It's really a nasty, nasty thing that occurs.
Yeah.
So you want to be tactical and smart, and we're one of the few firms out there with our elite wealth planning that says, okay, number one, let's understand the price tag if you paid it off today. Let's understand the price tag if you pay it off over your expected lifetime. And it blows people away. And this holds pretty true. When we talk about a $1 million IRA or better, if you have $1 million today, married couple at age 60 or 65, and we project out the tax cost from now to age 90, it's probably $1 million or more. Now, initially it sounds like, wait, I don't give all my money to the government. No, but you're paying this each year over the next 20, 25 years, and that adds up to $1 million. So if I know that cost is $1 million, you say, okay, and let's say to pay it off in a lump sum today, it's half a million. You say, okay, so I don't want to do that. But we find out, say, okay, if we do this, we'll find like maybe a strategy that says you can pay off Uncle Sam for 386,000, and you can do it over the next 6 years. And they're
Yeah.
like, wait, I can pay it off over time. So there's a graph. There's a sweet spot that we calculate. I think we look at 70 plus different strategies and find which one for your situation is the best fit. And that's the key, is that that's why Wall Street, that's why investment firms don't provide tax advice, because unlike investing, unlike portfolio development, unlike 60/40, 70/30, having a pie chart, that's one size fits all and they sell it to everybody. Tax planning is absolutely 100% unique to the individual, to their situation, based on their age, based on their income needs. So it's custom fit. We build custom fit tax strategies. But you have the super compounding that occurs if I don't give it up in taxes. I can keep it in my account and I can keep it growing, and I can reduce the risk and really keep it growing and minimize losses. All of a sudden you have a snowball occurring that is all positive to give you more money to offset inflation, to offset that healthcare expense, those things. So
Yeah.
that's what elite wealth planning is and what's different about it.
Well, and what's different about it is that our listeners and viewers can actually get a plan in place and get a second opinion on where they're at, have these reports run. So if we have somebody out there who has saved for retirement, they've been diligent, they have $1 million or more in their retirement accounts, how can they get a hold of you and set up that no charge, no obligation consultation? And have some of the reports run and get a second opinion on where they're at.
Well, the first thing I'll throw in here, which we actually had a listener that emailed me, and I thought it was kind of funny. It's like, heard you in the car, wasn't too sure what you said, but you know what? I found you guys on YouTube. So,
Oh,
if
yeah,
you're
yeah.
if you're listening to this show, and you kind of go, what did he say? It's like, there's no rewind switch on the car, or whatever you're streaming this on, but you can go to YouTube and see us actually having this discussion. And you'll see what a good-looking guy Tony is. I'm just kind of average, but Tony is phenomenal. I saw Tony's cat in his home studio running around there a minute ago. That was kind of funny. Oh, I lost you, Tony.
I'm the Bruce is the brains. I'm the eye candy. We've got a studio cat. It's all true.
It's all good. But so anyway, you can certainly replay this stuff on YouTube, which is great. But you can give us a call, 888-888-5601. We'd love to have a conversation with you. It's a 20-minute complimentary consultation. There's no commitments, no obligations. We always say no pressure, no hype, just math.
I like that.
Yeah, the math has to make sense for somebody to work with us. Or to set you up and make sure we're working with the right advisor. Now today we're talking about $1 million tax trap. Having $1 million IRA is a big deal. We want to put you with the best advisor for your situation. So if you go to discoverunlock.com, it'll actually give you, first of all, you get a free report when you fill this out. So it's kind of the 10 key areas that we want to make sure we address in our planning, but kind of what are you doing currently? Are you addressing it? Is it not being addressed? Whatever. So you go to Discover Unlock, spend about 5 minutes answering a few questions. We're never going to spam you. We don't do that. You do get the free report, but it also gives the elite advisor a copy of that report so they can kind of zero in with, okay, you're taking care of it. For example, you're already taking Social Security. Well, we're not going to worry about Social Security planning because what you have is what you have. It's in place. But you might say, well, yes, I would like to significantly reduce my taxes over my lifetime. And then are you currently doing that? Yes or no? So key elements like that make this 20-minute consultation call. It's free, but it becomes very efficient, very effective. So we want to help people that we know we can help. But we'll also validate with you what you're doing right now. So I think those are very key things. So visit discoverunlock.com or give us a call today, 888-888-5601. And if you can't remember those numbers or that website, go to YouTube, pop in one of the videos, and you'll see it at the bottom of the screen watching the video. Give us a call or hit us online.
All right, and we're going to be right back with more of Unlock Your Retirement right after this. Sorry, my dog is.
Your cat has a really strange sound.
Oh, that's the dog, and I don't know what's going on up there, but it's not good. All right, somebody came to the door or something. This is what working from home does for me. This is why I hardly ever do it.
Amazon.
Yeah, probably.
Amazon is every day. So Eli and my mentor, young gentleman down here, right?
Yeah.
Like every day it's something. So the latest thing is I have these really nice coiled up. You plug them into your USB thing in the car to charge your phone, but you don't have wires strung all over the place or more efficient.
Yeah.
And every day there's something laying on his desk. He says, every day is Christmas at Wealth Care. So
something's always coming. All right. Yeah, we have so many packages that come here too. It gets nuts. And this is our home. That's crazy. All right. Okay. So we're going to start back up here with part 2. I'll bring us in. All right, here we go. Welcome back to Unlock Your Retirement. I am here with our host, Bruce Smith. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. Bruce, great discussion so far. We've been talking about, you called it the Millionaire Tax Trap, and we talked about the hidden problem that nobody talks about. And that's your traditional IRAs, your 401ks. A lot of these are tax deferred, which we might think is great right now. But what happens later? The IRS doesn't forget about the taxes you owe on that money. You talked about that. We talked a bit about RMDs as well. I think that's important. Required minimum distributions. That's huge. And I know another aspect. I was going to, at the end of the last segment, we didn't get to it. But we talked a lot about how Uncle Sam has a great memory. Uncle Sam wants your money. He can change the rules as he goes, so he gets more money. I'm sure we'll be paying more taxes later on in life because of the way things are going with the deficit, right? It's just growing exponentially. So we don't like Uncle Sam. Usually we like our aunts. I have aunts and uncles that I love, but when it comes to Uncle Sam and Aunt Irma, nobody likes Uncle Sam and Aunt Irma. We hear about Uncle Sam a lot, and I don't even think he's my real uncle. But what about Aunt Irma? Why is Irma bad? What is Irma, and why is she not? She's not the nice aunt. She's the mean aunt, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, so when you're in retirement, there are new things that are on the horizon. Well, one of them is Medicare. So everybody talks about healthcare and how expensive healthcare is, and they all have that kind of vision of when I turn 75, or I'm sorry, when I turn 66, oh, okay, I'm now going to be covered under Medicare, and I know what it's going to cost me because it costs everybody the same. So they look at the chart and they say, okay, this much a month for me, this much a month for the spouse. I know what it's going to cost me. I know what my annual cost is. And we always like to know when we know what things are costing us. Well, back to the $1 million IRA. With a $1 million IRA, you click in. So you don't take withdrawals because you had a nest egg that you were kind of living off of, maybe after tax money, sold a house because you were downsizing or whatever it is. And you get to the RMDs and they start kicking in. You could find yourself taking $75,000, $80,000, $85,000 a year that's taxable out of these retirement accounts. And all of a sudden it can jump you in a tax bracket, but it can also trigger a higher Medicare cost. So now all of a sudden that health insurance that you said was everybody looks at the low number and says, oh, okay, here's the number. I'm just
I thought it was fixed. They always say it's the same. They say Medicare's increasing to this amount this year. I think this year it's $202 a month for Medicare Part B premium. And I always assume we all paid that then because they say, what's the premium for 2026? $202.
Right.
But it's actually on a sliding scale, isn't it?
That's exactly right.
And people don't realize that.
And it's funny. This I've had this a few times, and I thought I think this is really one of the interesting perspectives. You see everything in this business. You got to love some of this stuff, but this one I've heard a few times now. So it wasn't just one person, and this was the comment because you have Medicare, as you say, a sliding scale based on income, and so the first time this lady got jacked on her Medicare costs going up because of RMDs, because she was frugal, she saved, she had a great portfolio IRA, it
Yep.
was good size. She was never going to spend it all in her lifetime anyway. And all of a sudden she gets bumped into a higher
Mm.
Medicare bracket. And she said, "But that was for wealthy people. That wasn't for me." And people are like, "Why am I paying more?" And we
Right.
say, "Well, it's a sliding scale based on income." "Well, yeah, but I say that's money I saved for retirement. That shouldn't affect it." Okay, I get it.
But
So
taxable income is taxable income, and it can include Social Security, money you're taking out of retirement accounts, other sources of income, sometimes pensions. It can include the sale of a house. If you make money off of an investment, sometimes you pay taxes. Any of these things could put you in a higher tax category, right?
absolutely correct. So when you look at all of that, and see, now you just hit a very big key element, and that is, the millionaire tax trap for retirees isn't a single problem. It's not a singular problem. It's a layered problem. And the fact is, if you don't have integrated planning, which is addressing not just the portfolio, but your investment portfolio, but it's got to address the risk management. It's got to address tax management, which is
Yep.
huge, which is the most overlooked and ignored and costly mistake that people make by not having it in their planning. You've got the income management, and you've got the legacy management of what
Yep.
goes to your family. These are the four pillars that are in every plan that we build at WealthCare. So if you've got a layered problem, you need a layered solution. Because if you look at, elite wealth planning, I did an interview recently with another advisor, and we were talking, and I said, well, we explain it very simple, is that elite wealth planning and management begins where traditional retirement planning ends. So, traditional retirement planning is portfolio management. Okay, risk analysis, you got this much money, we'll break it into a pie. Here's what the stock market gets, here's what the bond market gets, here's the income you're going to take. Have a good day. And that's the end of it. So
Yeah.
it's vertical. It's just a
Right.
one-legged vertical, either I'm up or I'm down. Okay, fine. But elite wealth planning is both vertical and horizontal. So we're looking at, we want to get vertical and have value from the risk management. We want to get vertical and value from the tax management. We want to do it from the income management and from the legacy planning. We want the additive benefit of all four of those categories. That's the only way you can maximize the lifetime benefits of your retirement. And that's
Yeah.
what people aren't getting with most traditional advice.
Right. And a lot of advisors have the three-legged stool, and I say, "Look at me. I'm not gonna a three-legged stool isn't gonna support this guy. I need at least 4 legs on that stool, and they better be sturdy. So my financial retirement stool better have 4 legs." So, and I know with elite planning, you get at least that and more. And you do everything from maximize Social Security to, minimizing tax burdens. So there's the tax leg, there's the investment leg, there's Social Security. There are so many different legs to this stool and so many aspects, and managing the healthcare costs, Medicare and healthcare costs in retirement. I mean, we mentioned earlier, taxes are probably going to be your biggest expense in retirement. You've said that. Your second or sometimes first is going to be healthcare costs and long-term care costs. Those are the two biggies. And those are the two people just don't even think about that they'll need to pay out of pocket for in retirement. Isn't
Oh,
that crazy?
yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I've said this many times. My first 10 years in the business, I was a broker. I was like every other 300,000 financial planners out there, advisors, brokers, salespeople, insurance agents, wherever you want to turn for
Sure.
advice, and I was the same. My job was to sell you something. And,
Mhm.
and you don't sell somebody something based on being negative. You sell it based on being positive. Let's talk about growth. We're going to grow your wealth, grow your assets. Here's a great investment, growth of a portfolio, up, 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 up. And the crazy part is, what do wealthy people do differently? And I talk about this, in my book, Create Wealth, Retain Wealth. And they ask a very simple question. Everything that you just talked about, it asks, so you can follow it up with, okay, if I'm managing the risk in my portfolio, um, what's the future cost of the down part of it? If the market tanks, what's that going to cost me? We just sat with a gentleman that had, yeah, he's currently at about $7 million, but his one down year, he lost like $1.4 million. And we asked him. He said it was great because he's an engineer and he had everything. I mean, everything was spreadsheeted out for the last 12 years, and he's like, I said, so if that occurred today, he says, well, I would survive. I said, okay, but do you feel it's necessary? He says, well, that's why I'm here. I want to find out how we can make that not an issue.
Right.
So
I would think you would
you know,
not want to have that be.
so consider the future cost of not having the right risk strategy.
Mhm.
Taxes, what's the future cost of taxation? And everybody talks CPAs. I mean, they admittedly, I can talk about the tax cost this year. I can maybe help you 1 year into the future. That's it. That's the micro view that they have. They don't have the broad view of looking at longevity of really forward-looking tax strategy. So what's the tax cost? What's the cost of income? What does it cost me to get that $5,000 a month out of my retirement account? You're not getting $5,000 and spending $5,000. You're taking more than that so you can pay Uncle Sam. And then finally, what's the future cost of handing that money off in the form of legacy?
Right.
So instead of saying all the upside of everything, which is how people sell product and sell their services, an elite advisor is saying, he says, how do the wheels come off? Let's attack that and let's keep more, because many, many, many centuries ago, we had a guy named Ben Franklin that said, a penny saved is a penny earned, and if we adjust that for inflation, every $100,000 saved is $100,000 earned. And that should be pretty much our moniker at WealthCare. It's caring for your wealth. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea is even to hopefully, with the help of another thing Ben Franklin talked about, and that's compounding interest, every penny saved should be more than a penny earned.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. I mean, that's
and I
that's
think
what we're striving for.
Albert Einstein that said, the eighth wonder of the world is compounding interest.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I just saw a cool poster. I have to send you a picture of it. It has Einstein, but his hair's like blown out, and it's almost not a Peter Max, but it's a really cool piece of art. And he's got shades on, and it's talking. It says, imagination trumps knowledge all the time, and it was from Al Einstein. It was pretty cool. I'm a big Einstein fan, and I was like,
oh yeah,
that was cool. Al Einstein with a pair of shades on. So,
well, I mean, you look at where the things that both of those two, Ben Franklin and Albert Einstein, the things we have because of them. I mean, it's unbelievable. And both were pretty interested in how finances and math works. And it was all about, for both of them, do the math, right? Does this make sense or does this make sense? It's just gotten more complicated when it comes to the economy, when it comes to saving for retirement. The IRS tax code has grown to 77,000 plus pages. So, to really do the math and do what's going to be in your best interest and save you the most and help keep the most of your money in your pocket, which is why you're talking about all this in the first place. It's just become more and more complicated, which is why you have a job, Bruce, right? I mean, if it were as simple as my grandfather's retirement plan, not that he couldn't have used financial help. He could have and should have, but it has grown more and more and more and more complex. And that's what you do. You simplify things for people and you say, hey, here's the bottom line, because you've done this enough. Most of us are only going to go through the retirement planning process and the retirement process one time. My wife and I are only going to go through it once. You go through it every single day with people. And that's the difference right there. You can't put a price on that, because you've saved people, individuals, hundreds of thousands of dollars, kept them from making costly mistakes. So you really want to avoid those costly mistakes. So we've talked about RMDs, we've talked about IRMAA, and I heard I don't want to the administration passed a lot of great things in the big beautiful bill. However, I keep hearing politicians say that they've eliminated taxes on Social Security. Let's talk about Social Security a minute, Bruce. They did not eliminate tax on Social Security. That's a talking point that's gotten blown out of proportion. But now they did do something that actually made it so a lot of people won't have to pay tax on Social Security that did, but they didn't eliminate. Social Security is still taxed. The laws tax Social Security in the same exact way, right?
Well, and let's expand it beyond Social Security because I've been having this one a lot this year. Part of that, the big beautiful bill, is blue collar, hardworking people that work overtime, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm not going to pay taxes on my overtime. That's not what it says. But once again, it's we take. There's so many things that are talking points. But the fact is, one thing you can't predict future tax rates. You can't predict where the market's going to go, but you cannot predict legislative intervention.
Right.
What they do and what they say. I mean, there was a famous quote. In the last 10 years, I can't remember exactly who or what, and I'm not being partisan in politics, but one of the things was you've got to pass this bill so you'll know what's in it. And
I've heard that too. I heard that quote too. In fact, I've heard more than one person. I've heard both parties say that too.
That had to be, that's like the most ludicrous thing in the world. Step on the gas with a blindfold on and let's see where the car goes. Come on, this is just, God, are we that stupid?
Man.
We are the Americans. We are the people who live here. We're not that stupid. We're going to buy that from whoever the snake oil salesman is. And that's the craziness. But they'll stand on a podium and yes, we've eliminated taxes on Social Security for 2 or 3 people out of 300 million.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to get in. I'll go crazy.
But Social Security can be taxed. Still up to 85% of your Social Security can be subject to tax. So that's not only
aren't that high. We get people, I thought my Social Security was tax-free. And it's like, well, you make this much. Well, what do you mean? Well, you're taking it out of your IRA, it's taxable. You're taking it out of your 401k, that's taxable income. Yeah, but that's my money. And just, and that's the crazy part is people find themselves fighting themselves.
Right.
And then wanting to kind of beat themselves up because they didn't know. And that's, I have a real, I get a little crazy with this because for me, it is personal. I think you brought a great point up. I don't think I've ever had this discussion on radio before, but we have seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of permutations of people's retirement plans. We've seen ones that were successful. We saw ones that we could improve. We've seen failure. We've seen ones that were doomed to failure no matter what we would recommend to them because they were already too far down the rabbit hole. Eli and I were just talking about this. Eli is one of our new elite wealth advisors. He's also my cousin. He's also better looking. He's 30. What do you expect? But,
well, yeah.
But, and he's like, so wait a minute. So if somebody takes a lot of risk and their portfolio drops 30%, but then they're taking their income out, that's probably not recoverable. And, it's like, because in the old days you said, oh, my 401k recuperated in a year. Time out. The market didn't recuperate in a year, but you and your employer added money to it while it was recuperating.
Right.
Oh, and see, these are the things that are happening. And if you're not plugged into it every day, like we are, you see these things. So, and that's, why do you have an advisor? Where's the value in having an advisor? And I think to a degree in the future, that's going to be the main argument, is that knowledge, that expertise on a case by case basis against just a ChatGPT answer to something. We're seeing more of that. People, they'll throw something in ChatGPT. Well, ChatGPT said this. I said, okay, but did they consider this? So it's always a function of perspective. But no, I always say I have the best job in the world. But the millionaire tax trap, the problems that go along with a portfolio of $1 million or more saved for retirement are on several different levels and under several different columns. Another thing we haven't talked about is what we call silo solution, which is, you can have an investment person. And if you're doing income, maybe you have an annuity salesperson that sold you an annuity for income. Okay. And then you have somebody doing your taxes, whether it's the free tax thing online or H&R Block or a CPA, somebody doing the taxes. And maybe you went to an attorney and you have a will and a living will and a power of attorney and a advanced medical directive or whatever, or even a trust. But guess what? There's 4 professionals involved in that planning. It's not planning, it's basically services. But they each live in their own little world, and they don't talk to each other. They don't plan. They don't look
They're
for
each in their
value.
own silo. They're completely siloed from the rest, and there's nobody quarterbacking, nobody looking at the big picture. It's like you've got a 1,000-piece puzzle, and I always use this analogy. You love it. And who has the box lid? Who understands the big picture and is putting it all together for you?
Yep.
And that's why you need a trusted financial services professional who is a fiduciary, who can really coordinate all of that into the big picture and work alongside those. It's good to have a good team. And I think it's smart to utilize a CPA for tax returns and tax preparation, but there's a big difference between that and future tax planning, which really has nothing to do with looking back the last year and what, for this year's taxes right now. You want to be looking ahead to what you can do between now and December 31st and between now and 20 years from now when you're taking that money out in retirement. I mean, the Millionaire Tax Trap, it begins now, and you've got to plan far in advance, right?
That's it in a nutshell. I mean, people think when we talk about the Millionaire Tax Trap, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh my God, what am I going to do? The Millionaire Tax Trap is not about fear. It's about foresight. Elite wealth planning is about foresight. It's a future looking approach. It's not just saying, hey, here's a calculation of what we think the portfolio will be worth based on whatever. Because what do we know? We don't know the future. We don't know the market. But basically, what are the things that we can manage that are controllable? And it's not just portfolio design, it's everything. So it's about foresight. And if you've accumulated significant retirement assets, and that's what we're talking about with $1 million portfolio, and if you haven't modeled the lifetime tax exposure, if you're out there and you're kind of going, I don't have a tax plan, or nobody's ever shown me what that lifetime tax burden looks like. You walk into the car dealership and there's no window sticker on the car, and it's like, well, how much is this thing going to cost me to put it in my garage? And if you walk over and a guy says, oh, well, just trust us, take it home and we'll bill your bank account, no, not happening,
No.
That's really what's happening with taxes.
Yeah.
People don't know that they bought the car when they put that first dollar in, but they didn't know what it was really going to cost them over time. So, so you have that modeled lifetime tax exposure. That's what we do at WealthCare, but we also do that exposure as far as your income, as far as your risk management and the elite wealth management, including legacy value to your kids. So if you're not doing that, or you're missing a piece of any of that, then it's time to take a second look. It's basically for us to build a plan and look at a comparison. You're not going to get hype. You're not going to get pressure. What you're going to get is simple common sense, simple discussions, easy to understand, and you're going to get math that makes sense. And we always tell people, I say, look, if we can create massive, significant additional value for you, and you be the judge of that, we're not pushing it on you, but if the planning shows that, will you seriously consider using us as your wealth manager going forward? Because we're creating additional value that you're not currently getting, whether you're doing it yourself, whether you're dealing with a Fidelity or Vanguard far away, or whether you have an advisor that's just doing portfolio management or whatever. If you truly want to get the maximum lifetime benefit, you've got to have that broad, coordinated, comprehensive approach. Silos don't work. Only portfolio management doesn't work. And the more that you have, the more value that's created by having that type of elite wealth planning. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. And the elite approach that you're talking about, some of the things that are included, just to reiterate, and you've touched on these today, but you have a proactive Roth conversion strategy, right? I mean, if you're talking about taxes and minimizing taxes, especially for in retirement for people, and especially for those who have a million or more saved for retirement. They're going to need a tax-free bucket of income. And some might say, well, I make too much to contribute to a Roth, but there are ways to make that work, aren't there?
Oh, and it's not contributing. It's that you hit the nail on the head. That's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. I say this isn't about contribution; it's about conversion.
Yes.
And the boys and girls in Washington have made this very interesting because guess what? There's no age limit. You can do it at any age. There's no limit to the amount you can convert. You can do it whenever you want for as much as you want at any age that you want. Why did they make it so flexible? Because of themselves. You'll find that a lot of the greatest wealth isn't them, it's their spouse in many cases, which is kind of funny if you do some research through
Sure.
the Freedom of Information Act and things and look at their finances. But guess where they have a lot of their money? In Roths. Why?
Yeah.
They're protecting themselves from future legislative tax increases that they will not be subject to. The people that pass the rules have insulated themselves from having to pay that, but they're going to put that burden on the back of $26 trillion of untaxed assets in retirement accounts in America. And if one of those is your account and you've got $1 million or more in it, it is absolutely incredible the value that gets unlocked by having a tactical, not just proactive, but a tactical tax strategy built specifically for you as part of your overall planning. And that's where we find that the value of having that type of advisor far exceeds that of any singular portfolio manager, even a do-it-yourself plan.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where Roth conversion comes in, income tax, income bracket management. You got to manage those brackets. We're in historically low brackets right now. Maybe a good time to take advantage of this, get a second opinion on where you're at, asset allocation. You do it all. So remind our listeners who this is the most critical for. We're talking about retirees out there with 1 million plus in tax deferred accounts, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you got $1 million or more saved for retirement, this is something you can't ignore. If you're trying to get maximum value out of your retirement, this is where you want to be. And I'll close with a very interesting story. I love this story. It's a husband and wife couple came to us. They were retiring. He was an engineer. She was a graphic designer, and so they were like, "Hey, we want to have a strategic plan." So over an 8-year period, we were able to take all of their wealth, and it was about 800 grand, I think, and tactically move it over to Roth at a reduced tax cost from far below what they would have paid over their lifetime normally.
Sure.
And they were able to arrive at the RMD window with no RMDs required. They don't take any required distributions. They both get Social Security. They're taking 50 grand a year out of their investments. They're bringing in about 90 grand a year of household income that they don't pay one dime of tax on, including Social Security. They pay the lowest Medicare premium. And the coolest thing was he called me up one day and he said, "Hey," he said, "I just wanted to share this with you. We just qualified for a low income Medicare supplement because they have zero taxable income in retirement." Imagine 90 grand a year coming in. 100% of their worth will go to their kids with no taxation, and they can grow it for 10 years tax-free. So it's not just about theory. It's not just about I have $1 million and these guys can reduce my taxes. As there's layers that penalize you and cost you, you can remove those layers and have it work for you. That's the element that really works to solve the millionaire tax trap.
Yeah, there you go. Well, like you said, it's the millionaire tax trap isn't about scaring people or about fear. It's about having foresight, working with a trusted financial services professional. So before we go, Bruce, one last time, really quick, let our listeners and viewers know how they can get a hold of you. What's that phone number and web address?
Phone number 888-888-5601, or visit us at discoverunlock.com. or hit the Unlock Your Retirement YouTube channel, and you can see those numbers right there and get a hold of us, and we'd love to talk to you.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of Unlock Your Retirement with our host, Bruce Smith. Thanks, Bruce.